This is probably the most important video I've ever made. Let me explain. I used to be the sort of person that would watch movies with my arms crossed, lean back in my chair, and try to remain as unaffected as possible. But the deeper I've got into this beautiful art form that is cinema, the more I've realized that films have power. And it's only when we allow ourselves to experience the world of those films that we can unlock the benefits that they have for us. Films can inspire, edify, and even change our lives. Nowadays, I often find myself sitting in the theater as the credits roll, blown away by the picture that I just saw. And let me tell you, Gore Verbinski's Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die is the most affected I've been by a film in a very, very long time. Let's talk about it. Some words were said at the beginning of this film that have really just been running through my head over the last week, and those were that progress isn't really progress unless it makes the world better. The point of Gore Verbinski's story is that the world is kind of screwed, and not just in the movie. Technology like the internet, the smartphone, and artificial intelligence have done some good, but we have to ask ourselves the question, have they truly made the world a better place? And I know I sound exactly like my parents right now, but it might do us good to consider for a moment that maybe, just maybe they were right this entire time. Well, as one of my favorite Letterboxd reviewers, 24 Frames of Nick, says, quote, sometimes the world needs a punch right on the nose to snap them out of the hellscape we're just barreling towards at rapid speed. This movie is absolutely a punch in the nose. With that said, there are just three facets of the film that I wanted to discuss briefly, showing how important this movie is specifically for my generation. The first one is just the social commentary aspect. And I'll admit, this one is really, really on the nose. Like, there's no subtlety in this film. There's no nuance. It's very obvious what Gore Verbinski specifically is trying to say with his movie. You know, as much as it's an action movie, as much as it's an entertaining comedy and a dystopian sci-fi, it's a message. That's the point of the movie. It's a message that he's trying to get across, especially to the youth of this generation, of the dangers and the horrors of technology and what it could become. And in my personal opinion, it seems pretty prophetic, because the world that he shows us in this film is not very distant from the world that we're living in right now. And it's a horrific reality. It's not something that we'd want to live in at all. By way of example of what we're talking about here with social commentary, we have these public schools that are shown in the film, where, you know, all the kids are just constantly on their phones, and they're kind of connected like a hive mind because of their smartphones, and there's even a moment where they all kind of become zombies and start chasing the teachers. Now, it sounds goofy how I'm explaining it, but the way it's shown in the film is actually really frightening. And the reason why it's frightening is because the image of a bunch of people just all scrolling on their phones at once is not a foreign image. That's something we see all the time. It's so common. Everyone's on their phones all the time. All you have to do is add one little element of terror, which is that, oh, these kids are actually like zombified by their phones and they've become a danger all of a sudden. That's really the only difference, is that all these kids are walking in unison versus them just all being in their own little worlds. Again, the world that's shown in this film is horrific to us, but it's just really not so far from the world that we're living in today. There are other motifs that are shown in this film that, again, are very specifically supposed to be an analogy for something that we have right now. Like, for instance, the main bad guy at the end is this bald child that very clearly looks like some sort of Mark Zuckerberg character. It's very clear who this film is against. It's against big technology. It's against these big corporations, against Hollywood. It's against these industries that are actively supporting and promoting this kind of technology that can actually prove to be detrimental for our lives. The film could easily be labeled as conspiracy theorist, as, you know, just being reactionary and looking to the future with too much grimness in our eyes. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of these things, which is just phone addiction, social media being something that gives children especially damaging philosophies and can ruin their lives, these things are very clearly present in our day and age. And just because the film is very extreme doesn't mean that it's not still giving us an incredibly important truth. The second thing is that this film has a real-world impact and a real-life call to action. Now, I watched it at the Alamo Drafthouse Theaters, that's where I go to, and the rule there is you're not allowed to use your smartphone during a movie. So you'll get kicked out of the theater if you're caught using a phone during a film. Now, after movies are done, during the credits, usually everyone just picks up their phone and checks all their messages. That's just the regular way that people operate, you know, the stuff that they missed over the last 2 hours. But after this film, as the credits were rolling, nobody picked up their phone. I was looking around me just waiting, like, who's going to be the first one to pick up a phone after that movie? You know what I mean? It's a film that almost makes you feel guilty for having a smartphone in the first place. And the reason for that is because this is a film that's not made just for entertainment. It's a film that forces you to ask yourself the question, are these things making my life better? Are these AI tools making my life truly better? Is this smartphone making my life truly better? And if the answer to that question is no, then this film calls you to do something, which is to cut out of your life the things that are dragging you down. For me personally, that was getting rid of as much social media as possible. That was deleting distracting apps off of my phone and eventually trying to get a flip phone or something, anything to phase away from these LCD screens, from this blue light, from these distractions that surround us constantly. And that leads me to the third aspect of the film, which is just the concept of real life. Now, there's a contrast throughout this movie that I find to be particularly poignant, which is that we have this virtual reality world, this AI, metaverse type of concept that people are slowly giving into, right? People are going on sabbatical, leaving their jobs, and are just immersing themselves in this world. One of the characters even says, someone has created a world that's unequivocally better than the real world in every single way. You see, that's the entire idea of this AI stuff, is that if they can create a reality that's better than this one, that doesn't have the suffering, that doesn't have the pain, that doesn't have the heartbreak or the loss, well, then why would you not choose that world, right? But the contrast that the film shows us is how much better this real life and these real relationships and these real situations we find ourselves in are. There's a character who is allergic to smartphones and Wi-Fi. Her nose bleeds whenever she comes near any of these devices. And so she kind of has to live her entire life away from technology. She finds one guy who ends up being her boyfriend who's just against phones and technology at all. He's very old school. He likes to do things in the vintage analog way. So, they stay together because he's the only person that she can be around because he's the only person in this world who doesn't have a smartphone. At one point, they're in bed together and it's early in the morning and she says, you want to go watch the sunrise with me? And she gets him out of bed and they sit on their porch and they watch a beautiful sunrise together. And that's the best moment of the entire film because these two people who love each other, who have an actual, physical, real human connection, are just sitting together with each other watching a real sun rise over the horizon. That's the beauty of being alive. That's the beauty of truly being human, is being together with other people physically, embracing other people and seeing the beautiful sights that this world has, that God has created for us. And then they go inside and they make a baby. Really, that's the crux of what it means to be human, right? To experience life to its fullest, to bring life into the world. These people are actually living. And that scene is shown very particularly as a contrast to what later happens to some of these characters, where they end up going into this new reality, into this virtual reality that doesn't actually exist. See, that's the thing about AI, is that it has a promise. And the promise is that it can make our lives better. And it very well may be that some of these tools actually help people in different circumstances. But what we've found is that by and large, this kind of technology simply takes us away from the real world and gets rid of our ability to actually connect with other human beings. And we've known this ever since the inception of social media and the internet. That's just the way things have been. That decline in human connection is directly related to the effect that this technology has, especially on the youth. On my generation, the people who grew up with the internet our entire lives, and the new generation, Gen Alpha, I believe, who have grown up with the existence of these AI tools throughout their entire life. There's a quote that's said at the end of the film, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I wrote down as much as I remember it, where our main character says something like, "Don't get me wrong, AI will seem to give you everything you've ever wanted. Familiar and memorable characters, obstacles and challenges to overcome, and a satisfying ending. But it'll all be fake. You'll be living a lie." Those are my thoughts on Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. I hope this video finds the right people. If you're part of the technological generation, I'd say that this film is a must-watch. It changed my perspective, and I hope it'll change yours as well. God bless.